very cool people. I feel kind of awkward speaking next to them. But let me introduce them. So first of all, we have Laila. So Laila Khan is the lead singer in Sonic Boom 6, a 5-piece band from Manchester who have released more than 5 studio albums and toured extensively around the globe. Their sound is electric, combining different elements of several genres and have been described by Kerrang as taking ska, pop, grime, dubstep, punk and metal apart, which is pretty impressive. And then rebuilding them to create a hyperactive hybrid. So their lyrics tend to focus on social commentary, with a live show known for clashing activism and good times. Laila is also an artist and relationship manager at Nordoff Robbins, the UK's largest music therapy charity. Her role is key in raising awareness of Nordoff Robbins' work with artists and with the music industry. Can we give it up for Laila? And next we have the lovely Nadia. So Nadia is a singer, songwriter and guitarist from Hayes and Middlesex. She has spent the past decade fronting the Tuts, and they've toured with Kate Nash, The Specials, Selector, and even played Glastonbury. She is now embarking on her solo career, a stripped-back-down project showcasing her more personal materials and an exploration of identity, politics, and delving into her hilarious and relatable anecdotes from her journey growing up as a British Muslim punk in London. And finally, we have Dewan-Dean Soomary. So Dewan is a multi-instrumentalist, producer, songwriter, singer, and professional house husband, assigned to Get Better Records and Everything Sucks Music. He is currently making music under his new project named Teenage Sequence, so check that out on Spotify. That blends the snappy pop sensibility of indie disco, bleak humour, and fighting social commentary. So yeah, check the music's on Spotify. You have no excuse, you need to listen to it. So okay, so let's get started. So first, can you tell me a little bit about your journey and how you managed to get into the music industry in the first place? So we'll go from this and move on. So.
Yeah. So a lot of my life seems to be accidents. You know, I fall into these things without really thinking about it, and it was no different with music. When I was a kid, I had quite a rough childhood. So music was my sanctuary. From the age of 9, you know, I could put music on and feel safe and not have to worry about life, you know. And I was always the metaler in school, you know. I was a loner, I didn't have any mates. And then I happened to, well, I say make friends, but he wanted to be my friend. But I kind of was like, I don't like people, can't you see? I'm dressed in black, like you're not Axl Rose, like you might be Ginger.
Can you talk about Barney?
Of course.
Can you tell them who Barney is?
Yeah, so, and this was my friend Barney. We met when we were 11, and he had the same love of music, you know. He was Rage Against the Machine, I was Guns N' Roses, but you know, we met in that alternative space, you know, where we were rebelling against everything. And he started a band and asked me to be part of it. My instant reaction was like, oh my God, like I'm not good enough. But then I went with it, and I'm really glad that I did, and I'm glad that he pushed me actually, because I was very insecure. I was a loner, like I said. I didn't believe that I deserved to like be able to create music. Very low self-esteem, and he sort of gave me the courage to do it, and you know, many years on, like you said, Jay, we have travelled the world, we've played festivals, we've been on telly, we've done everything that that 10, 11-year-old girl dreamed of. And, you know, where I came from as well, I wasn't allowed to be brown, but I wasn't allowed to be white. So I've had this really weird, and I said to my friend who I came with today that I've never been in a room with so many people that look like me. And she said to me, she went, that's really sad. And it is, isn't it? You know, and a good friend of mine actually, you know, she was kidding, but I was telling her that I was doing it. And she went, well, what's a coconut like? You're going to be able to say. And I did not know what she meant. And I was like, coconut? For days, I was like, what does she mean, coconut? And then I was like, oh. You know, as if like, you know, it's that feeling of belonging in it. And when I see brown people that look like me, that are embracing alternative culture, I actually don't feel alone. And I was that person that was called a weirdo. My own band have called me a weirdo. Like, my parents, you know, often used to call me, what's wrong with you? Why are you dressing like that? And I'm like, well, make up your fucking mind. I don't know what I am, like, you know. But it feels, you know, it's an honour for me to be here and to be able to share my experiences with you all tonight. So thank you.
Thank you for having us. Like, honestly, thank you for coming. Right, Nadia, come on then, tell us.
Before we begin, I have a migraine, and I took a tablet before I left the house, so I'm a bit not my usual self. So I'll give it a go. I'll give it a go. All right, what was the question again?
A bit about your music journey. How did you become Nadia?
Okay, so believe it or not, when I was in primary school, I was really shy, and so similar to, like, we all have the same story of when we were in primary school, it was all white, and we were the only brown kids. So all my school crushes were white, and my best friends, and the white boys, I fancied these white boys, but they never fancied me back. And then I realised later on down the line it's because they're racist. when I got into year 6, you know, like how your teacher used to change every year at school. When I got into year 6, I got the most incredible teacher called Mrs. Allen, and she played piano. And every Friday we used to have a singing assembly. But even like outside of singing assembly, all we'd ever do is just play piano or rounders. So it's like music and sport, like that's right. And so it's just like music rounders. But we'd sing songs like Bob Dylan, Blowing in the Wind. I know. So quite like mature songs for like young girls. But I fell in love with Spice Girls. But I always had to be Scary Spice because I'm brown. But deep down I wanted to be Baby. And then my parents divorced when I was in year 6. So same time I had Mrs. Allen and everything. And I remember just like, it was really chaotic at home. There was like a lot of domestic violence and a lot of stuff kicking off. And I remember just being like totally, you know, just like going to school, being fine about it. But it was only until like Mrs. Allen sort of pulled my best friend to one side and was like, Nadia's going through some stuff, like, can you look out for her type thing? And then I thought, oh, maybe this is a weird thing that's going on at home right now. And then I am year 6 finished, so I had to wave goodbye to, like, you know, all my school crushes. All the white boys, goodbye. Goodbye, Tom Stevens. And then went into year 7, and then my personality just sort of like changed, and I became quite troublesome, and just like, you know, when you get to cuss fights at school, and you just, you know, when you cuss all the boys. But they used to cuss me first because I've got big ears and because I'm brown. So they used to be like, oh, you're big ears, you're packy, blah, 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 blah. So I used to just get this abuse like all day at school, and I would just not take their shit. So then I would end up cussing them back, and then it would just turn into this thing where like I was getting bullied by boys and then trying to like defend myself, and it was just a lot. And so then my love of pop music turned into guitar music, and then I started to listen to really cool bands like Busted, Good Charlotte, and then Feeder, and then the Libertines, and then I started to teach. For my 15th birthday, I asked my sister to buy me a guitar, and she bought me a guitar, and then I taught myself from tabs on the internet just by, you know, using the printer at school, like printing off free shit. So I taught myself how to play guitar, and then along with my best mate Bev, because now, like, similar to you, because like everyone had now just turned against me, so the boys used to just cuss me, and then the girls I was hanging out with sort of turned their back on me. And so Bev was the only one really, Bev's the drummer from the Tuts. Bev was the only one that stuck by me, and so we started learning drums together, but then I turned to guitar, and then yeah, we formed the Tuts, and then years down the line, Harriet joined the lineup, and it wasn't until I was we started playing gigs in our local pub, because I'm from Hayes, so we started playing in this pub in Uxbridge called the Crown and Tree, but no one gave a shit. Like, they were all just too busy drinking snakebite, dancing to the Arctic Monkeys. And then I thought, like, yeah, we'll get recognised in Uxbridge, and then we'll get signed, and, you know, it will all happen, but no, it never happened. And then we started getting gigs in London, and then we, so Harriet's sister, the white girl in the Tuts, so the Tuts is three tones, so a black, white, brown. So the white girl in the Tuts, her sister was really good at making music videos. So she made us a music video for a song called I Call You Up. And then we sent that music video on Tumblr to Kate Nash. And then Kate Nash saw it. And then we met her at a gig, and then she asked us to play a gig with her in London. And then that one show turned into a tour. But I didn't tour until I was 24. So it was a while from like when I started at 15 to like first tour. And then that's how it all happened. And we even went on tour with Sonic Boom 6. Yeah. So like, it was amazing.
24 is still young as well. Like,
yes. I'm 33 now. So yeah, it took a while and then to get where I am now. But yeah, that's my journey.
I got into music like when I was a kid. It sounds such like a terrible cliche, but it's the first thing I remember. And I have never studied music. I didn't do it in school apart from outside of when it was compulsory. And I simply didn't think from a very young age, despite the fact that I would be like, I loved two things when I was a kid. I loved pro wrestling and I loved music. So like one day after school, I'd be in my mother's makeup, putting Ultimate Warrior face paint on myself and pretending I'm a pro wrestler. And then I'd be washing all of that off and I'd be getting in a comb and I would be singing every single song, and music just made sense to me. But I never thought I could do it. I never thought that it was something people like me did. I never saw anybody. And we're talking about like 1991, around about that sort of time. My brother was a musician. He had a guitar. He had loads of cool records. So when he was a teenager and going out and doing teenager things, I'd sneak into his bedroom and it smelled like cigarettes and there were bottles of Jack Daniels hidden under his bed and stuff like that. And I would just meticulously go through all of his records and I would listen to everything and I would sit there and I would read the inlay of the CD. I would read every single word on there, right down to the publishing. I would read every lyric and anything was like, any form of music I could get my hands on, but I still didn't think I could go and do it. My brother gave up making music. He decided that he was never going to be in a band, so he gave me his guitar, which was an SG. Please know an SG. You've got like the best SG I've ever seen in my life. It was an Epiphone SG, and I made this horrendous noise with it, and just like started fretting. I didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't play a single instrument, and I just kind of started singing over the top of it. And at that exact moment, I stopped doing everything else I wanted to do in life. At that point, I thought I wanted to be an actor. I was studying. I was looking at doing theatre terribly in school. And then I just started like writing songs. I went to secondary school in Highgate Wood in North London. The school I had gone to before, despite I grew up in Wood Green, if anyone knows it, it's up in North London. Back then Wood Green was a pretty poor place. It was kind of tough. It was, there wasn't a lot of money and there wasn't a lot of creativity for people like me. And the school I went to was in Muswell Hill, which was quite a posh school. And I was one of 2 non-white people in my class. And this is from year 1 through to year 6. So I go to secondary school, and all of a sudden it is in this very multicultural place. And suddenly I start finding more people who are into music. And I start realizing that like punk rock was the music. Like I loved all music, but punk rock did something. It spoke to me. It was visceral and weird, and it was saying something. And I didn't fully understand what it was saying, but I knew I wanted to belong to it. I ended up starting my first band when I was like 16. We were called Play-Doh. We were a pop punk band without a singer. I stepped up to the mic and I started singing. And one of the guys in the band, his stepfather was a prominent producer. So we would rehearse in their basement in the studio. And he came running downstairs, but who was just singing? I was like, me. And he went, you're the singer of the band. And he just left. I was like, oh, I guess I sing in this band now. And it was quite wild at the time. We had a brown kid up at the front, 2 white boys, and a black guy. And I didn't realize at the time that was a very rare thing to happen in punk rock music. So we played a bunch of shows. The first show we ever played was a terrible party that I threw up on after I came on stage. And then we started taking it a bit more seriously. By which I mean we stopped playing pop punk and we started playing hardcore. So that was us taking it more seriously, but we were still quite melodic. We played hardcore all days, and I still didn't believe that I could possibly be doing this. And there was nobody else like me doing it, particularly in that North London scene. It was very white, male, aggressive scene. And that band started getting traction. I had moved to guitar now. That band started getting quite a bit of traction. We started playing shows outside of London and people would turn up. I think that I've shared the stage with Laila K more than anyone in my life.
I am the common denominator.
We have toured together an awful amount, and was the first other brown person I saw on stage, because I hadn't seen King Prawn at that point. I hadn't seen them yet. There was Asian Love Foundation, there was King Prawn, but I hadn't seen those bands yet. And that band went on to be very successful, and we did all the things you're meant to do in a band. When it all fell apart, and it's for good reason it fell apart, I realized that my position in that band was never because of my talent or my ability to write songs. A lot of that had been crushed. I was really there as the token brown member, of this group. So I took several years out. I got into writing for other people. I had some success in pop writing and doing stuff completely removed from alternative. And I did a lot of healing. We were talking about this, just a moment ago. I spent a long time not doing anything, and I had to learn how to be a grown-up. I had to learn a lot of stuff. Until about 4 years ago. And then I just found myself starting to write songs again. And then I started naming the songs. And then I started singing over and again, because the thing I hadn't done for a long time was sing, or spoken word, or perform vocally. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I guess I've started a new band, and I gotta go and put music back out in the world. Just so happened to coincide with WEIRDO becoming a thing, and I picked up the first issue, was deeply inspired because I realized in the time that I had been away, not doing anything, that immense loneliness that I felt as a South Asian person in alternative music, I wasn't alone in that loneliness. You and I have had conversations about that sometime down the road, but it was the single most empowering thing that has happened in my adult life, was picking up that first copy of WEIRDO. So I reached out to Naz to say how much I loved it, and fast forward,
Now
I'm
we're
here.
Yeah, brilliant. So you actually mentioned a little bit about feeling like the token brown person in the band. I wanted to ask you guys, did you ever feel that when you were in your bands and careers?
No, I definitely didn't, because everyone I hung out with was white. I didn't have any brown people in my life except my mum and dad. So no, for me it was weird, because like, if someone would say, so we played this gig in Holland once, and it's like this punk gig, and this guy with a Union Jack t-shirt on spat at me, and I was literally like, what the fuck are you spitting at me for? Like, and our guitarist was like, because you're brown, like, you know, like, and I'm like, oh yeah, but it was all right, like, our guitarist, like, just, he would not, that was Ben, he was like,
Ben, yeah.
he was like, I'm not taking shit. And, you know, and even when I was a kid, I remember, I guess that's where the coconut thing comes, it's all happening all at once, and, like, even when I was a kid, there was a lot of shame about how I looked, the colour of my skin, you know, it was very confusing for me. And it's only as an adult I can kind of start to unpick that, but honestly, hand on heart, I only started unpicking it when Naz asked me to do that interview for Weirdo, which was only about a year ago. Before that, you know, I wore like a traditional Asian dress for my wedding, and my mum was like, what are you wearing that for? And I'm like, because this is our culture, like, this is who we are. You weren't born in England, you are not English. But, and she doesn't even speak English, she speaks in Urdu to me. She doesn't even speak in English to me, like, and, you know, and I remember the first time I got called a packet, and I was literally like, me? Like, what? Like, what? I just couldn't, you know, and yeah, so it definitely, I've never been used as token brown.
So you never felt like that at all?
No, because Barney would actually say to me, look, you know, you understand Urdu, let's have an Urdu bit in the song. And I'm like, no. I'm like, why? And he's like, you know, the whitest white person ever. And he's like, but you got to celebrate it, it's amazing, like, you know. But, and then he didn't do it in a tokenistic way. He did it in a way like, celebrate who you are. But for me, I'm like, I can't, because A, I don't know who I am. And B, I'm scared to find out who I am, because there's so much shame there that I'm not ready, you know. And honestly, being here tonight is a real life-changing moment for me, and being part of the Weirdo crew, because I'm a fucking weirdo. I always have been, so yeah, no, it's not really.
Nadia, what about you?
Do you mean like token within the band or within the industry?
In the industry.
So when we first, it never really threatened me, to be honest. I was just sort of like, fuck you, this is who I am, and that's that. We just wanted to be the change and have fun along the way. So it never really occurred to me, like, oh, we're the only brown people in here.
Yeah, did it ever feel like promoters were like ticking off a box?
A little bit, but then we got a gig out of it, so
yeah.
we were quite happy to take the token spot. But what happens is, when there's only one spot, is then you accidentally start competing with other brown people, because then if there can only be one booking for like a brown person or band or whatever, then suddenly like you want to be the token band. We'll take the slot, book us. And we were like 100% DIY, so no manager, no label, no PR, no nothing, no like support. Crowdfunded our album, so we were like, you know, we hustled a lot, like the Tuts, like behind the scenes, like we worked really fucking hard to get like every single gig. But Laila, I suppose you paved the way in a sense for being like Pakistani punk, pack punk as we call it.
Yeah. I remember when.
So a lot of it's actually thanks to Laila actually.
Yeah.
You took the spit for me.
I took a lot of fucking spit, like, and I didn't even know why I was taking it. Now I do.
Thanks for taking the spit for me. I would have kicked him in the head if I was there. So.
Yeah, I was still shocked that I was brown. No, I'm joking.
But yeah, we just wanted to be the change, to be honest. Like we just wanted to be the change, and then eventually I just started to sort of be quite obvious about, like, because my dad's Pakistani and my mum's Indian, so then I'd start wearing like traditional clothing on stage, just to like, because I remember
I admired
so
that.
fucking cool.
Yeah, I admired that. I remember seeing you and just going, oh my god, I wish I thought of that.
Well, we performed Spin Doctors. Do you know that song, Two Princes, Spin Doctors?
Yes,
we performed that together. Do you remember?
Oh yeah.
It's on YouTube. Do you know that? It's on YouTube. Don't watch it.
I have to watch that. I didn't know that existed.
It's hilarious. It's really funny. It was at that headline. Anyway, so what was that song? So I wore traditional clothing, and I wore it at this festival called Indie Tracks Festival, which was like really white. And I remember there was this girl who used to go to that festival quite a lot, and she used to say to me like, "There's a lot of racist people here," and I've had comments. Because there was like a forum, and there was a lot of like racist comments and blah blah. And I was like, right, that's it. I'm gonna wear like traditional clothing. I'm gonna make a statement out of this. So I think I went to Southall. Shout out to here and over there. I think we've got some Southall people here. Yeah, you're home. So yeah, I just went to Southall to play to.
Did you experience any like abuse when you were there?
Oh right, no.
No, I got on stage first. So
Laila took the spit for me.
If we go and look at the flip side then, what kind of venues and festivals and like gig spaces have you loved and have been really supportive?
I like it.
Wow Festival. This is amazing.
This is good, yeah.
Isn't it so weird though? Like, does anyone else feel quite awkward in this room? There's like so many cool people. I'm like,
I feel at home.
do you?
Yeah, but you're the coolest among all of them.
Maybe it's not.
Right.
Everyone's so amazing in it, but I also feel like weirdly shy.
There's a lot of warmth.
Yeah.
I love that there's so much warmth. So I agree, like this place, I don't even know places like this exist. You know, I'm so closed off from it, and it's my job to not be as scared and to not be as ashamed and to not feel that what I've got to say isn't important. You know, but we've literally played all over the world, like Japan, America. You know what? Like one of the places that was amazing where we played, well, we did the Warp Tour, the band's Warp Tour in 2017, and it was so It was the guy from Black Veil Brides, Andy C. and the last drum Andy Summer. Oh, were you there?
Yeah, Ali Pali.
Oh, we would play that one as well, yeah, but no, this one was the one in America, so we did that one in Ali Powell, yeah. We did that one in Ali Powell. And then we went around America for 2.5 months, playing every day, and the vibe was amazing. Like, there was meditation, there was a safe space for women, and you know, Warped Tour gets a very, very bad rep because it had a bad rep, but they are doing what they can. All the people in charge were women, and so and they were in charge. And they were like, "We love this festival, but how can we be better? How can we do better? And how can we do better every single day? It doesn't stop. Getting better doesn't stop. You don't complete it and go, oh, everything's amazing now. We don't have to worry. It's every single day. And yeah, it's a Warped Tour. It's very inclusive. I felt very safe. There was bands like Anti-Flag, War on Women, Bad Cop. Like it was just it was actually intimidatingly female. As in, like, because I'm so used to just not being women, like at our gigs or playing, you know, in the bands that we play with. That again, it was that thing where I was like, okay, this is new, but this is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Nadia, what about you? What about best kind of live performance for you? Most supportive crowd?
Oh my god.
Oh my god, there's been so many. You did that residency. Do you remember you did that residency in London? You like played every week. Yeah.
I can't remember things. I took a tablet before I left the house. That's like my memory.
It was amazing because you were doing it every week in the same venue and it was a similar place like this and the vibe was really good and you were getting support bands that were all women and it wasn't that long ago.
I can't remember. Right, I don't know what to do.
Some places where you feel comfortable, really comfortable.
Do you know what? We fucking loved all of our tours. They were amazing. Like when we went on tour with Kate Nash, it was all young girls. So we got the teenage fans from Kate Nash. Then we went on tour with the Selector. It was all old men. So our fan base became like young teenage girls, and then these old middle-aged men with money called Dave and Dave, who have loads of money, and they're the ones that spend all the money at the merch table. So we would literally rob them.
That's the right thing to do.
And like Dave and Dave, like we had these bands called Dave and Dave, and like one of them had like a big leather jacket and like a dodgy eye, and then the other one was like, you lot, well, because then when we finally did sign up to a manager, he was like, you lot are doing less with a manager. Because he was tracking our progress, and he couldn't believe it that we were doing less when we got signed to a manager. But we ended up sacking our manager anyway. So yeah, so in the end, our fan base became like young girls and old men. And it was quite great actually, because all the young girls and like non-binary people would be at the front, and then there'd be like a cluster of old men around the and it was great. But those old men, they'd always say problematic shit. Like they'd always come up to the merch table. They're always northern. They'd be like, "You got that T-shirt?" They'd be like, "You got that T-shirt in fat bastard size." I'd be like, "Yeah, we do." Just so you know. That was my favourite bit. Was like playing the gig, but being at the merch table, like taking the old man's cash. So Harriet would be like, you know, there with the bum bag, and I'd be like chatting away, losing my voice after the second gig. Yeah, it was all fun. When we played Glastonbury though, we had a bit of a disaster. So we played the Leftfield stage, and 2 songs in there was a power cut. So you can imagine like it was our biggest like, you know, festival to date, and like we were all dressed up, and it was a maximum capacity tent because it started to rain. So everybody rushed in, and then like 2 songs in, there was a power cut, which was just like awful, and then they'd stop playing for like half an hour. But most of the festivals have been really fun, apart from like a couple that have been a bit shit. But they've all been like, we always make it fun. Like when the Tuts turned up, like everyone knew we turned up. Like you couldn't not, like you know, like we just had so much fun.
Yeah.
But I've now got a bit more like solo and stuff. Last week I played WOW Festival on the South Bank, and that was really lovely. And they paid me well, because like in the Tuts, I'll be honest, like when we went on tour with Kate Nash, we got paid £100 a night, and that was for all 3 of us, including expenses. Like, and that is the reality of like being in a band, especially when you're like supporting another band. And it's been that like bands get paid that like since the 80s, like it still hasn't changed. But now I've gone solo, like for some reason I'm getting more money. I don't have to split it between the other 2. But WOW Festival, they paid me great. They got me Ubered from Hayes to the South Bank, back to Hayes. It was great. I showed my Uber driver how to do yoga. It was brilliant. Like just a bit of like, you know, nothing major, just you know a bit of. Because he had lower back pain, and then amazing dressing room, shower in the dressing room. You know, everything just. It was just. I got treated so well. The crowd were amazing, and that's how it should be every time.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah.
However, there is whenever Sonic Boom 6 play a gig, and if the rider is perfect, and there's like hot food and everything on the rider's spot on, the gig is shit.
Yeah, something's got to go wrong.
So,
Yeah, always.
100%,
Yeah,
100%. Like we play gigs where it's like, oh, we've got you these jackets, we've got you this speciality food and da da da. The gig has been awful. But that might just be yours. Like, well, I don't know. Have you had that experience?
Yeah, I mean, like.
Maybe because you go into a food coma.
It's got nothing to do with the food.
No. I know, like, listening to both your answers has been really interesting. Like, it's out here thinking about, like, every single show I've played. I played a bunch in, like, the weirdest place. I've literally played in the sewers of Brighton, and, like, I played Tokyo Hall, and kind of everywhere in between. And there's, even the sewers of Brighton, there's always been a problem. There's always been something that's made me uncomfortable. I think about some of the worst ones, like one of the worst ones ever, and this took me years to unpick, was we were on tour with a band called Broilers, who are a huge German. Yeah, you did that.
Yeah.
I wonder if this happened to you. You really want to know. I forgot you told them. They're huge. Like, to give you an idea of how big Broilers are in Germany, Green Day would support them. Just to give you an idea. Like, they are Rammstein are arguably the only band who are bigger than them in Germany. I think that's fair to say. So we went out on this arena tour with them, and every single night, without fail, you could see, when you're on a stage and you're looking at an arena crowd, you don't see people's faces really, you just see movements of people, kind of like schools of fish swimming around. Every night I walked out on stage, there was this movement of roughly between 50 to 100 people who would come over to my side of the stage and start ZKing. And you haven't lived until you've had 100 people ZKing at you. It's one of the weirdest, like at the time, I just found it quite funny because the audience.
Just before you go on, can you explain what's the case?
Don't do it though.
Absolutely not going to do it.
I would rather just done it and then go, oh shit, what am I doing?
Do you not know what that is? I don't know what is it.
I don't know what it is.
To ZKL is the Nazi salute.
Yeah, and that's
I was like, no, I thought that would get more of a reaction. Everyone's ZKing sometimes dance. So it's the Nazi salute. And like, it's one of the weirdest fucking things on the planet. And it's quite funny because the audience was self-correcting. So what would end up happening is the audience, the rest of the audience, this is a very small minority in this group, would chuck them out essentially. And then the headline band would go on, and they were deeply anti-fascist. Because of their roots in Oi music, they had gathered a fascist following, but they were deeply anti-fascist. I'm still good friends with Sammy, their frontman. They are lovely human beings. And he would apologize profusely to me. But in amongst that experience, I would be wandering around afterwards, and there would be one, maybe two non-white people who would specifically come up to me. And if we think it's a problem in the UK, in Germany, and in like a lot of mainland European countries as back then, we were non-existent. There was no Laila, no Nadia, no me, none of us. So I would have these people come up to me and say that they had never seen another brown person on stage before, and they didn't think it was possible. And it reminded me of me when I was a kid, and I just didn't think it was possible. So in amongst all of this chaos, there was often these one moments that made these mad things worth it. And I can't think of a single venue ever in my career that hasn't had some kind of weird problem to it. But there's always been this great reason to do it. I remember that I think maybe like the second or third time we toured together, I would have people come up to me at those shows and they felt comfortable, like brown folk who felt comfortable to come to shows because we were on those bills. So kind of going back on the tokenism thing for a second here, like, you know, I'm not saying the ends justify the means or anything like that, these are all still problems, but every now and then you just kind of let go of it because someone's had an experience that is so important to them. I kind of don't care how we got there. It's just like empowered to see them. I realise I've been talking for a second, but I do just want to say one very quick story and one real example of that, and something that I carry with me every single day. The first time I was on the cover of a major magazine, it was correct. And it was this unbelievable moment. I couldn't believe it. There I was on the cover of this magazine. Barney texted me, and Laila texted me that day, like, you know, it was this moment for the entire team. I was walking with a band member down Oxford Street the next day. The next day. And we got surrounded by 5, 6 big Asian lads. And they didn't look alternative. And back in those days, you unfortunately, it was safe to judge a book by its cover because I was legit like, cool, we're gonna get in a fight. We're gonna get, like, I don't care, I will fight, but we're gonna get beaten up. So they surrounded us and they were like, started with the, don't I know you? Right? And I was like, no, I don't think so. And I was fully ready. I was fully ready for this to go down. And then the guy's like, no, I do know you. And I'm like, for fuck's sake. And the bit that really annoyed me about those days was all of this like macho male posturing. Like, if you're gonna punch me, please just get it over and done with. Stop doing the dance. I'm bored of this bit. And then he goes in his bags. I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna be bad. I was like, instantly my head was like, he's gonna pull a knife, he's gonna get a weapon. And you know, because that's just how that was. And he pulled out a fucking cover of the magazine. And he went, that's you, fuck. And they all were like, oh my fucking god, you're the guy on the cover. We have never seen a brown person on the cover of a rock magazine. And the reason we got chatting, the reason why they didn't wear the clothes and didn't have the hair was because they thought it was so taboo to be brown and into rock music, into alternative music, that they buried it and buried it and buried it. And from that moment, I realized the absolute importance. You know, I'm real, like, it's still mad to me and weird to me that it was my face. Yeah. But that, to me, was the absolute importance of representation, of us being seen in these communities. And very quickly, just because I just remembered this, Teenage Sequence has been booked for a festival. I can't say which one. They didn't offer me stupid money, they offered me proper money. I'm too old to go and play stupid shows for stupid money, unless it's for us. Then I don't care about the money. And the reason they even heard of Teenage Sequence was because of WEIRDO. Because they read the music issue. And that is the power that we have when we do this. And we're not getting lowball bullshit. We're getting actual offers. And we have a voice now. So yeah. Sorry, went on a massive tangent there. I really didn't mean to. I apologize.
I think that was very interesting.
Sorry.
We're going to open it up to a Q&A now. So if anyone has any questions, please. Yep, at the back.
So, you know, hearing all your stories and things like that is quite nice, because often I feel like I'll never make it in the music industry. I'll never be able to do all this stuff that I want to do. And you know, when you feel sort of like, oh man, I can't do this. Like, what do you like try and tell yourself? What pushes you more just to be like, oh, I've got this. Like, it's all right. It's gonna be all right. Like, I've got it, and I can be successful. I can do this. Like, how do you think like that's? How do you think you can like get yourself out of that? Yeah.
So what like drives you forward?
Yeah.
For me, it was defining what success means and what making it means, because they are things that I'll never get to because I'll always want more and more and more. And as soon as I was just like, A, I deserve this, and B, it's got to make me happy. And by that, I don't mean like skipping down the road. I mean just a bit of contentment, you know, a bit of like, I can look at myself in the mirror and go, I've done a good job today. I've done something that means something. And as soon as I sort of made peace with what that looked like for me, just for now, you know, because I don't know what's in the future, things got a hell of a lot easier.
So, we used to get quite a lot of questions like this actually, and we'd always say, like, you have to believe in yourself, which I know sounds really basic, but you do, because if you don't, like, how can you expect anybody else to? And I think when you're really passionate about something, whether it's like songwriting or just whatever it might be, if you really want to do it and you want to, like, you're going to do it anyway. And you know, you're going to write songs. Like, if you want to write songs to like be famous or make money, then you might not go that far. But if you're going to write just to like write, to be honest, and just make something that you like listening to and you like doing it, the chances are that, you know, you could actually be quite good. And you only know until you actually do it anyway. So if that's what you want to do, I would just keep writing, get some songs together, perhaps do a demo, like we were talking about this earlier. I need to take my own advice here, you know, do a demo, send it round to some mates, play some shows, open mics, whatever, and like build a bit of confidence and get some good energy around you. Surround yourself like with some like people who've got your back, and then you'll start building a bit of momentum and energy, and like send your songs to, like I'll have a listen. I'll have a listen. Like we can chat and stuff. I'm more than happy to help you. What's the other thing I was going to say? Yeah, I think that's about it really. But yeah, just keep writing. Just keep writing. Write the year. Oh yeah, do morning pages, everyone. Do morning pages. So every morning when you wake up, you have to do 3 pages. Do you do that too?
No, but literally someone told me about it this morning.
Oh my god.
I've never started. Yeah.
So can you explain what? Right. So there's a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, and I haven't done the whole book because, you know, ADHD, whatever. But like the fundamental principles of it is every morning you should write 3 pages. So think of like A4. If it's A5, do 6. That's what I do. So 3 A4 pages of absolutely anything. It could be absolutely crap. You could even wake up and just write, I've got nothing to write. Oh, I need to take the washing out. I need to do this. Blah, blah. You just write 3 pages just to get stuff out. And apparently that's supposed to be good. And then you get more creative because it takes like the top layer of crap off, and then you get to the good stuff underneath. So that's my little tip thing.
Yeah. The only both of those answers are great, and the only thing that I can really add is something that helped me a lot, which was realize and remember that there is a difference between music and the music industry. The music industry is a very cruel place, and I think that's fair to say. We, as this community, can build our own music industry.
Yes.
But separate those 2 things and write music and have fun. Like, have fun with the music you write. I write songs. I run around my apartment chasing my dog, writing songs about him. I write songs as a matter of practice and just as something to do because I really, really, really love doing it. These songs will never be heard outside of my wife and the dog. And that's cool because not every single song right needs to be. To do it for the joy of doing it, make that your basis. And unfortunately the rest of it is overwhelming, but you are not alone. You have this entire community and rely on it. Use it.
Yeah. And I think we are, the South Asian community is very supportive of each other, especially with us weirdos. To see other weirdos thrive like you guys, that means so much to us, and I think we really do kind of get behind you with that. So if you are going to pursue it, just know we've all got your back. So.
Yeah.
And also, there's so many white mediocre men putting music out there. So, why the fuck should we want them in?
Does anyone else have any questions? Yes.
You mentioned earlier about identity, and you felt like you didn't fit into the British crowd, you didn't feel like you fit into the South Asian crowd. Do you guys feel like you finally found who you are and you're happy with that, or do you still feel like you're on that journey?
Oh God, this is one layer of the onion has been peeled. There's a lot of layers to go, but you know what? I like that because life is not, like I said before, you don't just complete it. You don't just oh, I'm brown, that's it. It's I need to keep exploring what that means to me, and I need to keep exploring what is the fear behind that shame. Why can I not own being a brown woman, a northern brown woman as well? Because when we played, except for the really racist gigs where it was pretty obvious, the thing that people had more of a problem with that I was northern and a woman. Honestly, some of the gigs we played, especially in places like Brighton and stuff, the problem was my accent and that I was a woman and I was rapping. That, which actually, the race thing does come into that bit, but those were the two things where, and it's funny because we know a band called Random Hand who are northern as well, and I often have these conversations with them. Did you feel the hostility in the same places that we felt the hostility? And they were like, yeah. Okay, so, we're a small island, but we're very divided. And our accents, what we sound like, people instantly judge me, oh, she must be a bit scared because she talks like this. And we do it, and I'm glad I actually remembered to say that because that was a big thing. But yeah, layers of the onion.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Hi. Do you ever feel with tokenization that while you're being tokenized, the token almost comes with a receipt, and that it can be taken away at any time? There's this kind of feeling that when you're playing a show or when you're in a scene, if you make some sort of slip up because of the nature of the power structures of white supremacy within the music industry, it can be taken away at any time, and there's this kind of overarching feeling of you're here for diversity, but just behave yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really important point to make, and it really goes back on something Nadia said earlier on about the fact that there is such small amount of spaces for all of us that we end up competing with one another rather than looking after one another. And yeah, absolutely, one mistake, one thing, one pissing off one promoter, having the audacity to have a swig of your own vodka at your own show. Like, all of these things, we are on this incredible, like, thin ice, and we will be thrown out and replaced. Because I believe when it comes to tokenization and it comes to, like, white supremacy in music and in DIY, in punk rock, in the, like, you know, the every single genre, that we are starved of space means that we compete with one another, and that means that we can get chucked off. Somebody else will fill that space, and that's a huge, you know, something that desperately needs to change. Like, you know, so I think it's a really great question and a really important thing to point out.
I think what I'm getting from this is that we need to create our own space.
Yeah, pretty much.
Create our own lineup and our own festivals, making spaces, so we don't feel the need to compete with each other. We're going to move on to our final question. So, would anyone else like to ask anything? The back, yeah?
So I was just going to ask, so when you, so the scene you guys are in is obviously very stereotypical.
Just 1 second, can you come a bit closer? I can't quite hear you.
Thank you.
I was going to say, like, the scene you guys are in are obviously very stereotypically, like, white, hipster kind of scene. Do you think from when you started to where you are now, you've seen an increase in diversity? And, like, has it got better? Has it got worse?
One thing that I will say about Sonic Boom 6 fans, they are not hipsters. But they're not hipsters. I love them all. No judgment there, but you know, when we started in 2004, 2003 maybe, yeah, years and years ago, and at the time there was no one. Like, literally, we were playing places like Yeovil and Barnstable, and, you know, everyone was like very middle class, very white, but had a rancid t-shirt on. And but now, because of the internet, especially, like, we get messages like from young brown people that have got onto our music and that really identify with me as a person, and that's so special because, you know, I keep going back to it. I never felt like I was worthy enough for somebody to identify with me, and now at our gigs, it's got a long way to go because we're a weird band. I'm not even going to pretend, you know, like, we do ska, hip hop, reggae. Then there's my voice on top of that, and, you know, like, it's a weird mix. But when people get us, it's a beautiful thing, you know, because one of our things is, like, at our gigs, yeah, the lyrics are very, a single word isn't wasted. It means something. But for us, the first thing we want people to take away is that they had a dance, they had a good time, they went home, they didn't know who we were, they listened to us and they were like, oh, okay, we had a bounce, but they've actually got something to say. And I do feel that is happening more because people get in touch with us, and, you know, we get people from Mexico that are like, oh my God, that lyric spoke to me, and it's like, okay, but, you know, there's still a long way to go.
What about you guys?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more bands with, you know, like Decolonized Fest, for example, like they've got a whole lineup of bands of, like, punks of colour and all sorts. So, and it's amazing to see bands like Big Joni and Nova Twins do so well. I still feel like there needs to be like South Asian rock fest punk.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. But yeah, and a festival.
Yeah.
That would be incredible, and we could put like but yeah, I feel like even though there needs to be, like, you know, there could be more bands and hopefully there'll be even more. And I do see so many more musicians, like South Asian musicians, black musicians, forming bands. I feel like there needs to be more like POC people working in the actual industry itself.
Absolutely,
Because,
absolutely.
for example, like I've got some songs that I'd like to release. One of these songs is called I Can't Marry You, and it's about when I was my ex-boyfriend, who I was with for 8 years, and he was Pakistani, and I didn't want to marry him. And in the song, I talk about how I didn't want to have a nikah, which is an Islamic marriage. So like, if I went to a record label, if I sat with like a white guy and I was like, yeah, I've got this song, he's like, show me what songs you got. Like, is he really gonna get it? Like, he might just be like, who's that gonna appeal to? So sometimes I feel a bit worried, and I think, God, I've got these songs, but who can I go to even help me, or like, where can I get management, or like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I think, like, who's gonna get it? Like, who could I go to? Like, because there's only like a few people that I know in the music industry that work for like labels or whoever that. And so I just so we'll see what happens, because I've been in rooms before with like a white guy who's just been like, your songs aren't good enough, blah 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 blah.
Don't wait for them.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
literally get your music out there. Because
I
don't
self-release.
hear that song. I
Yeah,
don't know
me
about
too,
you guys,
right?
but I
That's
don't hear that
amazing.
song.
And I don't want to hear a song that's made for a white guy.
Yeah.
Record
Oh,
label. No.
That's what Oasis is for.
Yes,
What about you?
In answer to your question, sorry. In answer to your question, yes, I absolutely think it's got a lot better. I also think that it's not anywhere near where it should be. I feel that there's a lot of hollowness to anything outside of communities putting their own events together, like Weirdo has done this evening. There is a lot of tokenization going on. I also see this like rapid idea of representation being white women, and that's a real issue for me. Like, I've got to be very aware of my own privileges in life. I'm a cis straight guy, and that goes a real long way. I worry deeply about musicians, female musicians, trans musicians who are of colour, who are suddenly finding themselves being like erased from opportunities because these opportunities are going to a certain type of woman, a certain colour of woman. And I do also understand that this is because the music industry is run by white men, and I'm all for seeing more women, all women, on stage, performing, on big tours, having the opportunities to go forward and make music. But the decision-making process is with white men. And I know these white men. I've met them in my career. I know exactly what Nadia just said. Like, you should be largely wasting her time unless they thought they could make a buck off of it. And in which case they would completely miss the point of what she's trying to say. And that's, that's the main thing. Whilst we have made tremendous progress, that progress has come from grassroots movements, is my belief. And we simply have to become undeniable. Like, we simply have to become such a large voice and a community that looks after all of us.
Yeah.
That we simply become undeniable. If nobody is gonna give us that space, we're told this idea that there is plenty of space for everyone. That's bullshit. That's not true, and it's entirely gay-kept. If nobody is going to give us that space, then we create our own space and we make it so big it takes us.
Yeah.
And that's what has continued to happen to marginalized communities, not just our marginalised communities, but different marginalised communities around the world. And we have to be unapologetic about that, because otherwise we go back to like one person in this room representing all of us and being like, well, we gave Teenage Sequence, I'll give myself the tour, right? Like, well, we gave Teenage Sequence a tour, he's brown. Isn't that enough? No, it's not. And like, you know, so yes, in answer to your question, progress completely. This is progress. This is unbelievable. Like, I'm signed in America. I'm signed to a trans queer run label. I'm one of the only non-trans queer people on that label. I'm very, very honoured to be included and supported by that community. The fact that I just said there is one of the most popular indie labels in America is a trans queer space is progress. That is something that when I was a teenager listening to Epitaph record, like Epitaph compilations, would never have existed. But progress is not enough as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you for that. Can we give them all a round of applause?